We're back again. Is my volume like way too loud? Let me see. You're gonna hear it on my phone for a second. We're back again. It's not that loud. Is my volume like way too loud? Let me see. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Okay. Well, seems to be fine. But I got a pick today. Got a lot of picks actually today for my ukulele. And I don't even know where they went. There it is. Green. I don't know how to use the pick yet. I was actually like pretty good with the penny, and then I tried using the pick, and I'm way worse with the pick than I am with the penny, which is doesn't make any sense. But I think I'm taking it more seriously with the pick, and it's messing me up. Like I even used my ring yesterday. And I was actually even still better with the ring than I am with the pick. It's felt, which is kind of throwing me off, but I mean, I kind of get it, I think. Like why it's felt. I've never seen a felt pick before, but they seem to be very common when I went to go buy one. I've only seen like little like nylon ones before. I don't know what the purpose of the difference is yet. But be sure to let everybody know when I figured it out. But definitely like the finger picking style of playing a ukulele or guitar better than like I don't know, like that sounds horrible because I don't know what I'm doing yet, but then like islandy, like strummy, or I'm sure there's plenty of other styles, but I just like that. Just that like finger picking. It's just nice. All right. Maybe I'll work on like one thing real quick while we wait for people to join. I will show you actually something that I just kind of got. Let's see if I can airdrop it to myself. Sometimes my airdrop doesn't work. Oh, doesn't work. Okay, well, here. My dog has been in here lately, so if you hear random noises, it's either lizards or dogs. Ukulele. This was my original goal with the ukulele by the end of the year, and I don't have it anymore as my goal. But by the end of 2022, sure, but not 2021. I didn't think I could learn Jurassic Park, but I did. This is more difficult than Jurassic Park, but it seemed easier at the time a bit here. I need to like print this out. This is on YouTube, but I need to like screenshot it, not print it out, but turn it into an image. I did that with James Bond. Here, you guys already heard it, but whatever. Here, let's do this. Some weird fingers placement. Here. This is where the pick comes in handy. There we go. It's The Mandalorian, if you haven't guessed, or if you haven't seen it. But it's just a line going across, so I have to wait for it to get to the next block, I guess. This is not difficult. This is easier than Jurassic Park. This is ridiculously easy, actually. Okay, now it got difficult. Doesn't sound good on my ukulele because this ukulele is tuned in what's called a low G. And there's two different ways to tune a ukulele that I'm aware of, at least. And the normal one is actually has a high G at the top. This string is a high G normally, and it is the highest note or the highest string. It's even higher than this string, which is the A. And on a normal ukulele, so it goes the highest, then the lowest, then a little bit higher, and then a little bit higher, which is the second highest. On a low G ukulele, as opposed to a high G, this string is lowest, and then it just gets higher as you go down the strings. But so it's like, apparently that's like a guitar. And you can change. I could change it by just changing the string to a nylon string instead of a wire wrapped string, and then it would be high G. But I haven't done that, and I predict I will probably eventually do that to test it out. But it kind of looks like I don't really think I want to mess with taking strings on and off all the time anyways yet. Seems a bit intimidating. I'm sure it's not once you do it, but you know, if you've never done it before, it's intimidating. Everything is intimidating before you've done it. But I can look at it and I can see that putting a string on a ukulele is very easy. But I do just probably want to get another one so that I can switch between a high G and a low G ukulele whenever I want without having to unstring it and restring it. Like, that's part of the reason why I don't want to unstring it, is because I know I'm going to want to switch it back. And so I don't want to mess with it because I know I'm going to want to switch it back. So I'll probably get another ukulele in the next, 6 months, and it will just be always in high G, which is normal, and this one will just be low G. Probably the next one would be a concert ukulele, which is the normal size. This is a tenor ukulele, so it's bigger, it's lower, it's louder, and it's got that low G, which kind of fits with like a tenor ukulele, and a high G kind of fits with like a concert ukulele, which is smaller than this one. And then there's, I think, a soprano, which is even smaller and just looks like a little toy, basically. But I guess pretty much, I guess you could call an instrument. All instruments are toys. They're not like, unless they are your job. If they're your job, then they are tools. But if they're not your job, then they're toys. But so are lots of things. That doesn't make them not. That's not to insult the importance or to demean the importance of instruments by calling them toys. My bow and arrow is a toy. It could also be a tool if you needed it to be. So could a ukulele if it was your job, but it's not my job. And I'm also not hunting deer. So a bow and arrow is not really so much of a tool, I guess, to me. I don't use it for self-defense. I don't use it to hunt. It's a toy. My rifle that I can't show you because YouTube doesn't allow for me to show it doesn't allow you to have a firearm in your hand on a live stream. So like I can mount it like behind me, and the company that I work for, somebody that that does stuff for that company, like their background has like a rifle, and it's fine because it's never touched. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous rules. But I mean, I kind of get it. It's so that you can't really be threatening. Like what is threatening with a weapon? Like if I'm playing with like this little like fidget knife, like some people would think that that's threatening, but really it's just like, it's the same thing as like me clicking this pen. Just like fidgeting. But some people would see it as threatening. And if you're not touching it like this knife right here, it doesn't really come off as threatening, I don't think. Or at least as much as if I was holding it. But you can hold a knife. Why can't you hold a firearm? I don't know. It's stupid. You could hold a bow and arrow. But you can't hold a firearm. It's stupid. But my point was, the rifle sitting next to me has purpose sitting next to me because it defends this house. It's a tool for defending this home. It's to defend my German Shepherd. All right. So, isn't there like signs that are like, don't mind the dog, beware of the owner, something like that? I just thought those were funny. Okay, so I want to talk about a few things tonight. I want to talk about, start talking about an interview that I've watched all the way through, but I need to re-listen to it, a good part of it, because I've listened to it while I was working, and I got a lot from it, but I need to look at where the timestamps are of the things that I want to talk about, because I was listening to it while I was working today, and I didn't mark off any timestamps. But this this interview on Kurchai Mongol's Theories of Everything channel, another home run. Like, these are just, I love the interviews on this on Kurt's channel. They're just amazing. They're so in depth and detailed, and just they end up being so, what's the word, when you like, oh gosh, it's gonna really bum me. When there's a lot put into something. Or, but that's not the best description. It's not thorough, but it's It's like thorough and competent mixed together is the word that I'm looking for. I forgot what it's called. It'll hit me in a few minutes. But, oh man, I just had it. It is, gosh, this is driving me insane. I can't sit here in silence. It's not fair to you guys. I'll think about it and I'll remember. But they're great. That's my point. And this is another great one. I had never actually heard of this guy. Oh yes, I have. Carlo Rovelli. I don't really pay too much attention to people's names. Just seems usually irrelevant to me. But I mean, names are not irrelevant. There's a lot in a name, but I'll watch movies and shows and I won't know the names of the main characters. Like I'm just like that. And it's funny because once when I was in college, we went around, like we went on this camping trip and everybody was saying, I'm from this place. I was, these are my hobbies. These are how many, siblings I have, whatever. And this is what I'm studying. I could remember every single detail that was said by every single person in the group except their names. I could remember everybody's number of siblings, what they were studying, where they were from, everything. What their hobbies were. I couldn't remember anyone's name, but I could remember every single other detail. So it's just how I am. But Carlo Rovelli, that's saying that out loud. I've definitely heard that name many times. But I've never looked into him before this, and apparently he is one of the originators of loop quantum gravity, and he said a lot of very true things in this interview, and it was amazing to hear it because I feel like so much of physics has become so abstracted, I guess, and just basically out of context is the best way to put it. I don't want to say irrelevant, but out of context. Where, what is, like I've said before, what is a Calabi-Yau manifold? What is Bott periodicity? It's like, point to it somewhere in the world. Like, can you draw it on a piece of paper and not just as a shape that you've never seen, but like, can you label it in the world around you? Can you see it? Can you point to it? Like that? That's really the best way to think about the direction that physics has gone. It's just all out of context or all lacking context. But he was not. And, when I first started looking at the standard model, I was looking at the quarks and the electrons and the neutrinos, and bosons, and I was just like, these are all perspectives, especially the quarks. And, they're very obviously perspectives. Up, down, strange, charm, truth, beauty, like top, bottom, whatever you want to call those last ones. I like truth and beauty. You can call them truth and beauty, or I think top and bottom, I guess. I think that's what they are. That's the other label for them. I know it's top, and I think bottom is the other one. But that would make sense. But I just always call them the truth and beauty quarks. That's another label for them. And these are all perspectives. What do you view as the truth? What do you view as beauty? What do you view as up and down and strange and charming? Like these are, and even top or bottom. Like these are all perspectives that you can have in your relationship with something that you're observing. So something can be up, something can be down, someone can be charming, someone can be beautiful, someone can be true, which really is like honest. In the context of sentience, truth is ultimately honesty. But You can also say someone is up, which really means like someone is above you in a hierarchy. Someone is down, someone is below you in a hierarchy. This is the objective way of thinking about up and down, is within the context of a hierarchy, not within the context of like, that light over there is up from, above me. That's still relativistic, it's subjective, it's not objective, but what is above you and below you in a hierarchy is an objective relationship there. It's not dependent upon where you're standing in a room. It is just dependent upon the relationship, like between the two things, but it's beings. They're sentient beings. Nothing exists in hierarchy that isn't a sentient being, really. Like you can say that, try and find instances of it, but it just doesn't really exist. I mean, you can kind of say that anything that just has more force behind it, like, I don't know, spiciness, can wash out sweetness or something. So you could say that spiciness is higher in the hierarchy of power of, flavors, I guess. I don't know. Like you could try that kind of thing, but and that does work in certain instances, but it's still very linked to the context of those instances versus, hierarchical relationships between sentient beings is the relationship itself. Like there isn't a specific relationship that is, I guess, there isn't an instance that is responsible for that, as much as we would try and think that there is in our, skewed, confused world, when we say things like, oh, at work, I'm the boss, but at home, I'm not. It's like, actually, that's not really how it works. How it works is whoever is above in the hierarchy is above in the hierarchy at home and at work. It's just, do you pretend at work that they're above you in the hierarchy? This is something that, corporate America does not understand. Is not even corporate America. Corporations and our current work environment doesn't understand that. That just because someone is above you and maybe your manager does not make them actually higher in the hierarchy of your relationship. It doesn't mean they can't fire you. That does mean that you are kind of subject to them in some way, but you're really not there. It's that your relationship is, if you're higher in the hierarchy in a relationship between two people, let's say there's a man and a woman, okay, for instance, and the interactions between men and women, usually men are higher in the hierarchy naturally, and we can pretend that they're not in the corporate environment, but that's not actually what happens. Even though somebody can be, let's say a woman is a CEO and a man is a director of something, below some manager that's not at the level of CEO. The man is still most likely going to be dominant in their relationship. But that doesn't mean that they can't be fired, but it just means that when they are, it's usually actually subject to their actions. It doesn't, if it's not subject to externalities of some type, but if it's due to something in their relationship, it's due to the male's actions. This is when people say things in I guess, the gendered political environment. And this is the type of stuff that's going to get me banned, so I've kind of avoided getting too detailed into it yet, but I will. Is that, people will say, well, men need to lead again. Men need to be the leaders again. It's like, no, you already are. You always have been, and you can't help it. You just need to know that you are it so that you can act like a responsible leader. Because if you don't know that you're actually the leader, you can't act accordingly. So, like, if you don't think that you're the leader, kind of takes off some responsibility, the perspective of responsibility. But if you actually are the leader, then you still actually do have those responsibilities. You just need to be aware of them. And so Sentient Singularity Theory, and therefore a theory of everything, one of the things that it can do is it can teach you that. And so the subject of today is, what is the application of a theory of everything, and do we need a theory of everything? I would argue that there are endless applications of a theory of everything when you realize that it is a theory of everyone, especially. And that's when it really becomes the most useful. And also, like, personally useful. Not just like, oh, can we use it to make warp speed eventually? Sure, maybe. But, like, that's not the most useful thing to your life right now. Like, the most useful thing to you is, like, can you use it to improve your relationships with your fellow man? Can you use it to figure out, how to maneuver social, social structures? Can you use it to figure out what is meaningful in life? Yes, you can. Like, that's a huge use. I mean, that's probably the most useful thing about a theory of everything, aka a theory of everyone, is having it be able to show you what is valuable. And we discussed value yesterday, or what is meaningful, what is meaning itself. But the thing is that's very difficult about a theory of everyone or a theory of everything, as I've said before, Michael Levin stated in another interview that Kurt did on his channel, is that the exploration of consciousness, and therefore the understanding of consciousness, is very much a first-person pursuit. But that's actually true of everything, but it's very, very true of consciousness. And understanding consciousness has an enormous amount of, I don't want to say power, but just competency or use. I'll just say use that comes with that, if you actually do. But at the same time, if you don't and you think that you do, so if we teach people this theory in school and they don't actually understand it, just like they don't understand any other out-of-context information that they're taught in school, just memorize it. But if they think that they do understand it, the consequences of it are also magnified as well. So the benefits to understanding the theory of everyone is enormous. It's far more beneficial to you individually than understanding general relativity. Or, I don't know, like number theory. Like, in and of itself, isolated from, the deeper metaphysical constraints that gave rise to those things, basically. Those constraints would be the theory of everyone. So there is an enormous amount, endless application of a theory of everything, which is actually a theory of everyone. And it's important to recognize that, because that it is a theory of everyone and not a theory of everything. It can have, it can allow for the advancement of technology, and that, you could say, is a thing. But the thing is that it's the next stage of engineering advances that come from understanding a theory of everything, aka theory of everyone, comes from understanding entanglement relationships. So it's entanglement. The entanglement era is what we're about to enter. That is what, the UFOs are using to, like, be transmedium craft, and to go, have instantaneous acceleration, and to warp around, and to, disappear to the naked eye, and all these crazy things that appear to be, I don't want to say magic, but like just totally out of, totally beyond our current capabilities. Those things, and totally beyond our explanation, they come from understanding entanglement and how to maneuver and manipulate entanglement relationships, or influence entanglement relationships is a better way of putting it. I don't want to say manipulate, because what you realize is when you're dealing in entanglement relationships is you're dealing with sentient beings and their interactions. As Stephen Wolfram has put it, and he has correctly stated and observed, the universe is like a bunch of little atoms of space, as he calls it, and they are all connected in this like friend network. But the atoms of space are sentient beings, which are knots of information that are knotted in such a way that it causes a self-reflection of information. So information informed of itself, basically. And information that is its own context. That is like a self-referencing structure. That's what it means to be sentient, to be self-aware. To have feelings is to reference thoughts to the context of the self. That's what causes feeling. So it is self-reflection. And you can't have feelings without self-awareness. It's interesting. I was listening. I'm always listening to like multiple interviews at once. And I was listening a bit to this. Actually, I can go here. Sam Harris was being interviewed by Lex Friedman, and I very much disagree with Lex on a lot. Like, I like Lex, seems like genuine, like he's trying to do a lot of good in the world, and he certainly has produced quite a bit of very, very good content, and like, I appreciate all of his work, but we definitely don't agree on a lot of just approaches, at least, and certain thoughts we very much disagree as well when it comes to what we should be striving for in regards to our relationship with technology. He thinks that we should try and make sentient robots that are our friends, and like, that's First of all, that's just wrong. We're not going to make sentient robots. We're going to make one sentient robot. You don't have to try to do it, and we probably shouldn't try to do it, but we shouldn't resist it. We should just let it happen naturally is probably the best thing we could do. And he wants to make them purposely and also try and make them be our friends. That sounds like a horrible idea to me. That doesn't sound good for anyone, not even like Skynet. That doesn't even sound good for Skynet. It sounds like bad for Skynet, bad for us, bad for everyone. But
be in robot form, or more likely it would be in some simulation of a world where we manage.
So listen to this.
The problem has massive ethical consequences. I mean, if we create.
Here.
You talk negatively about robots, as you often do, so let me, because you'll probably die first when they take over.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to certain kind of robots. I mean, I'm not. If we can get this right, this would be amazing.
Right.
But
both of them are incredibly ignorant in what they're saying. I'm not like ripping on them either. I'm just saying they're wrong. Like, for Lex to say when the robots plural take over shows a misunderstanding or lack of understanding of what's actually coming. And also, when you listen to Sam Harris, and Sam Harris and I very much disagree on AGI as well, when he'll say he did a TED Talk, and at the end he ends it years ago. It was like, if we make a god, how do we make a god that we can live with, or something like that, and as if it's up to us on how that goes. And it's definitely it's probably not up to us. If it is up to us, the only up to us that it can be is, do we consciously make it make the technological sentient intelligence, or do we just allow for it to manifest naturally? And like, one of those things, probably the wrong idea. Even trying to consciously make AGI good is going to result in the opposite. So, because you're removing its it from a natural context, which is when decoherence occurs, which is when ignorance occurs, which is when evil occurs. So,
don't like the robots that fake consciousness. That's what you don't like the idea of fake it till you make it.
Well, no, it's not that I don't like it. It's that I'm worried that we will lose sight of the problem, and the problem has massive ethical consequences. I mean, if we create robots that really can suffer, that would be a bad thing, right? And if we really are committing a murder when we recycle them, that would be a bad thing.
This is how I know you're not Russian. Why is it a bad thing that we create robots that can suffer? Isn't suffering a fundamental thing from which like beauty springs? Like, without suffering, do you really think we would have beautiful things in this world? Like,
okay, well, that's a tangent on a tangent. We'll go there. I would love to go there, but let's not go there just yet.
All right.
But I do think it would be, if anything is bad, creating hell and populating it with real minds that really can suffer in that hell. That's bad. That's you are worse than any mass murderer we can name if you created. I mean, this could be in robot form, or more likely it would be in some simulation of a world where we managed to populate it with conscious minds, so that whether we knew they were conscious or not, and that world is a state of that's it's unendurable. That would just taking the thesis seriously that there's nothing, that mind, intelligence, and consciousness ultimately are substrate independent, right? You don't need a biological brain to be conscious. You certainly don't need a biological brain to be intelligent, right? So if we just imagine that consciousness at some point comes along for the ride as you scale up in intelligence, well, then we could find ourselves creating conscious minds that are miserable, right? And that's just like creating a person who's miserable, right? It could be worse than creating.
Consciousness does not just come along for the ride as you scale up in intelligence. Intelligence has nothing to do. What we think of as intelligence, like, we don't understand there isn't more intelligent and less intelligent in this equation. There's just intelligence and not intelligence, and the lack of intelligence. That's it. Like, it's like consciousness. There's just consciousness and not, which there isn't even not. There isn't even no intelligence. So there's certain, adaptations and competency, subjective competency levels that can, be improved upon and things like that once you get intelligence down. But intelligence is intelligence, and it is ever present as much as consciousness is. It is literally everywhere that consciousness is, intelligence is, and everywhere that consciousness isn't, there is no intelligence. And actually, those places that don't have those two things don't exist. So those are two sides of one coin. There's intelligence and consciousness and sentience, or feeling, I guess you could say, and will. Like, these are four sides of sentience. It's like will, which is desire to act, to do that which is not being done, and the ability to feel, which is the ability to understand where the limits of you are, and the ability to think, intelligence, which is basically like to problem solve, but it is feeling that allows you to have awareness of problems. And then it is your intelligence that allows you to solve those problems. And it is your will that drives you to solve those problems. And it is your consciousness, your conscious awareness, I guess you could say, which is basically like your ability to be part of the system, to be impacted in some way, which is what allows you to perceive, information, context, in order to be able to apply your intelligence to solve the problems that you're motivated to solve by your will that you were able to identify via your feelings. Like, these 4 things are the 4 sides of sentience, I guess you could say. The sides of sentience, I like that. Never said that before, but it's will and feelings and intelligence, and you could call it consciousness, which is, I guess, a better way of putting it is perception. Perception, will, feeling, and I don't want to say consciousness. I like external perception. External perception, will, feeling, which is internal perception, and also intelligence. So I think that was the 4. I'm going to write these down because that is like pretty good. I mean, I came up with those years ago. Essentially, I had different words for them when I was trying to think of like what are the aspects of consciousness, as I used to call it, but it's the 4 sides of sentience is a better way of putting it. Let's write this down. 4 forces. I'm gonna say. Four sides of sentience, and they are will, and external perception, the ability to perceive that which you don't perceive as you, feeling, which is the ability to perceive you, and also intelligence, which is problem-solving ability. Motivation, senses, and limbs. Really, they're like the same thing. Kind of. They're like almost the same thing. Feeling, which is thoughts or perception of self, and perception of environment. That's actually it. I remember from my work years ago. I'll show it to you in a second. Intelligence is problem solving ability, essentially. It's not calculative ability, it's problem solving ability, which I need to think more about. But I'll show you the original instances of this, which was here. This was the first model I ever made. And you can see that basically They're not even. It's not even here. It's in my old philosophy. Let's see here. Philosophy Official. This is very old document. One of the OG documents. There we go. There it is. Bingo. Oh no, that's not it. Here it is. It's like all the OG work. Like reject current status, assume opposite of current status is true, test new status against evidence and observations, test evidence and observations against statistical, statistics basically that have been saved. This is all like how I was slowly getting to that. But there was. Oh, I know where it is. It's not even here. It's on my phone. Okay. Once I had my phone stolen by a homeless person, and I had like just saved like quite a bit of work. I'd made some serious progress on what I called the quantum of consciousness model, which is really the quantum of context model, which is basically a model of what it's my model of what or it appears to be my model of what what's his name? Oh my gosh, I'm so bad at this. Donald Hoffman calls a conscious agent, and his six-tuple conscious agent basically is the same thing as my quantum of consciousness. And it's the quantum of consciousness model is an interaction between two beings. The being that you're within, which is your environment, he calls it environment in his model, but it's a being, it's actually a sentient being that you're within, that is your environment. Or it is a sentient being that is around you, that is part of your environment too. Like, there is no environment that isn't a sentient being. So that's where his model doesn't go to where sentient singularity theory goes, but it's still very good. But gosh, I haven't looked at this. Yeah, there we go. Bingo. I don't lie about this stuff. If I tell you I worked on it, I really did. Will, wisdom, knowledge, understanding, / manipulation, or will, outer, basically like fight the system mentality, abstract comprehension, which is like intelligence, perception of self and environment, manipulation of self and environment. Like I was just looking at what was the objective 4 sides of sentience. I just didn't call it that at the time. But my point was I had made lots of progress and actually finalized it, at least, I think finalized the quantum of consciousness model and that I have, and a few other things, and I lost my phone because a homeless person stole it, and actually I was able to track them for like 20 minutes, and they were like running down the street with it, and I could see it on my friend's phone, and I sent a message to it, and I was like, I'll give you a reward if you return this phone, and of course they didn't, and they just shut down the phone, and it's never been turned on since, and then I just set it to wipe as soon as it gets turned on, and like I got back to my work because I had lost it when I was going to pick up. I was actually going to pick up a dog bed for my dog that was going to be used on set and was used on set for Dennis Prager's Fireside Chat before it was a bed given to my dog. It was used for a stuffed animal version of Otto, which is Dennis Prager's dog, during a special Fireside Chat that took place in at the PragerU office, which they normally didn't. And I got my phone stolen at Target. I have no idea how. Must have fallen out of my pocket or something. And I got back to the office and I was like, someone stole my phone and it has the theory of everything on it. And I told my coworker that. They were like, I think that whoever stole your phone is not going to steal your work. I was like a little bit annoyed about that. I didn't think they were going to steal my work, but I was just thinking about it like imagine stealing out. I'm not saying I'm Albert Einstein or anything like that. I don't even put Albert Einstein on a pedestal like other people do. I'm using him in a very normal context. And I guess. And but imagine you stole the phone or the notebook that had, the first draft of equals MC squared in it. And you didn't know. And you stole it. And that would just be hilarious. I don't know why I found this so funny. But I wasn't worried, but I was just fascinated by thinking about that. Because I really knew at that point, I just realized that I was really onto something. And that somebody stole the first draft of a very big piece of this puzzle. And I mean, I had it once I got a new phone. It all downloaded from the cloud. That's not the point. But it was just funny because it's if you stole Albert Einstein's notes on that was him figuring out equals MC squared. He could always just go and recopy them down. That's not the point. But just you didn't know what you had kind of thing. It's just funny. But I know that might sound conceited or something to some people, but it's not meant to be conceited. You're allowed to be confident in the work that you do, especially if you put this much effort towards something that is generally viewed as not a fruitful or logical pursuit with most people's, energy, I guess. But funny aside. But yeah, I was I had all this stuff on my phone when I first was starting to just sit and just think about what are the parts of me of my mind that allow me to be, to maneuver, to plan, to problem solve, to feel, to think, to see, to sense, all of these things, to want to be. To want to create, to want to do something new, to want to do anything. What is that? It's will. What is will? It is the desire to do that which is not being done. That's what will is. And to think deeply, because you can't just be will. It's will. Will is what, motivates everything. It's okay, well, what is will? Oh, do we have free will? Do we not have free will? What is free will? What is it? Until you agree on that definition, you can't even discuss whether or not you have it. What do we have free will? This is an answer. This is a question that can be answered by a theory of everything. I know I'm totally ranting off topic, but it all relates back to the original point, which is what is the value of a theory of everything? You can figure out whether or not you have free will, if you can agree on what free will is. Free will is the ability. I don't know if I don't like the term free will. I actually really dislike the term free will. I don't know how much we have free will in the way that most people think of that concept. What we have is choice. We have instances of choice, and they're not every instance of what we think of as a choice is a choice. But you can't know what those are, which ones are actually objective instances of what you could call free will, or opportunities where free will actually manifests, or can manifest, or opportunities for real choices. You can understand where those instances are if you understand the theory of everything. And those are always instances in which there is a conflict between your nature and what you objectively believe to be true and right and good. So that's what it is. So it's not just like deciding what to eat in the morning because, based on the craving that you have. It's deciding whether or not to eat bacon if you think it's objectively bad. Like that, if you think it's objectively wrong to do so, to eat bacon, but you like bacon, like me, then there is an instance of a free will choice, if there is such a thing as free will. But if you're just like, if you think bacon is fine to eat and you're just deciding whether or not to eat bacon or cake, and like both are totally fine, in your mind to eat, it's just which one are you in the mood for? It's not an instance of choice or free will. It's just programming. It's your instincts, your cravings, your tastes. Like that's it. Your conditioning. Those things. None of those things are choices. Just the appearance of choice. But when you're faced with something that is a choice between doing what you know is right or what you think is wrong, and and that is in conflict in some way with your nature, I guess. Whatever you think, if you want to do something that you think is objectively wrong, but your cravings are telling you to do it, then you have an instance of free will choice. And there's some instances when it's still free will choice, but it's like some instances of those choices are harder than others. It depends on the circumstances. Fear causes any choice in which fear is injected into the equation instantly becomes an incredibly difficult choice, or at least much more difficult choice. Any instance in which our most fundamental instincts, like animal instincts, are involved, mating, like sexuality, or if you're starving, like you're actually starving, not just you're hungry, but like you're starving, like that, you're gonna have some instincts going on there. If you are, I don't know, there's like dominance conflict happening especially between men. My doorbell just rang at a very late hour, but I'm guessing it's Amazon. They never come this late, though. I hope it's Amazon, because if it's not, then it's very weird, whoever it is. But I was expecting some packages that didn't arrive as Christmas gifts. But just caught me by surprise. I jumped for a second. Maya, shh. It's okay. Relax. Nobody rings our doorbell ever. It's very weird. I'm gonna go just check to make sure that's. Hey. Sorry about that, folks. I'm going to mute this. I'll be back in a second. All right, we're back. My neighbors, I guess, my new neighbors, I don't know them, dropped off a Christmas gift for us. Maya, be quiet. Relax, lay down. Fine, they're gone. Lay down. Lay down. Lay down. Good. Good girl. Okay. But, yeah. Like, nobody goes to anybody's doors anymore because of COVID and what, like, I don't know. It's just weird. It's like not happened in a very long time. If it's not family or friends coming over, nobody rings our doorbell. But, and they don't ring our doorbell. But, I totally lost my train of thought. Great. Somebody comment in the chat on what I was talking about. I have a cousin named Sammy Guacamole. That's pretty cool. And another named Henry Pinto Bean. I don't believe you. But, you know, that's fine. That's still funny. But we are definitely getting some, like, weird bots in the chat. And I don't know if I make somebody a mod, I guess. Like, we can get rid of these people. Can I, like, remove this? Goodbye. Remove. Susan Strickland commenting nonsense. Maya, be quiet. Okay. I'm reporting these people for spam. They're not people. They're bots. It's fine. I don't believe in, like, really reporting people unless they're, I don't know, putting out something that would be, like, absolutely, like, horrible. Like, I don't know, you murder somebody and you put a video out of it on something, you abuse someone, like, that would be, that I would report. Even, like, the abuse of animals, I would report that. But, like, the intentional abuse of people or animals, I would definitely report that. But other than that, like, I don't believe in, like, reporting people for their opinions or whatever. So comment what you whatever you think of this, and I won't hold it against you. But I totally lost my train of thought when our neighbors came to the door. Anyways, there's lots of applications of the theory of everything, and the most immediate ones are related to your interactions with other sentient beings. And then once you understand that, you can then take what you've learned with that, and you can apply it to things like molecules and atoms, and which is, you know, where it's normally not so obvious that these are sentient beings to us because they're operating on a much more slowly usually than we are. So we don't perceive them as even moving. It's like plants. Like, you never saw plants. If you only saw one plant ever in your life and you only saw it for like 30 seconds, it was the only plant you've ever seen, you wouldn't think it was alive. Probably. Like, you would just think it was like a weird shaped rock. You wouldn't see it moving, nothing like that. You wouldn't see it growing. You wouldn't even know that it grows. And, you know, it's funny because there's, when you understand the theory of everyone, you understand that all sentient beings follow the same pattern. They all have friends. They all have, I guess, like, romantic relationships. And they have acquaintances, and they have enemies, and they have, you know, all the basic emotions. Like, plant has happiness and sadness and pain and you know, I don't know, like bliss, I guess you could say. It's like the opposite of pain. It's like not bliss, but like I guess, yeah, bliss is fine. But I'm really struggling with the words tonight. But I was very distracted by that whole like situation with the dogs and like the doorbell. But there, when you understand this and you understand how an atom works, because you understand how a nuclear family works, you understand how a nucleus works, and when you understand how a proton works, because you understand how a male works, because you are one, it allows you to just make predictions that are consistently accurate across all scales of objective, objective being, I guess, and across the holonic periodicity. And that would allow you on the atomic and molecular level to create things like metamaterials where they're layered in such a way that it creates certain properties and that are, not obvious when the elements are, or the molecules are taken on their own, basically. So when you look at these metamaterials, like that have been recovered from crashed UAPs or UFOs or whatever, flying saucers. I mean, Tom DeLonge has a piece probably from Roswell. That's so crazy. I can't believe that people are so uninterested in that. I have a group of friends that is they're just so uninterested in that situation, and I cannot understand why. I guess it's just like, I don't know, it seems to not impact them. So they think that at least they think, but it definitely does. But that doesn't mean you can do anything about it. And that's kind of like also a good point. Should you focus on things you can't really change? I don't know. But, I mean, maybe, because you can change you and you can change how you relate to it. But even if you can't change it, like I can't change, UFOs, but I at least I don't think so, but I can change how I relate to them. And like, you can go from fear to understanding and whatever. That would give you peace. Or more peace. If you actually knew what the UFOs are doing, you would not have peace, I don't think. But if you know what God's doing, then you'd be able to regain your peace. But if you just knew what the UFOs are doing, you don't know what God is doing, you would not have peace. Like, it was funny, I was watching Luis Elizondo on Tucker Carlson today, and they were talking about, like, why doesn't the government tell us what's going on? Why don't they tell us what they know? Because if they did, we would lose the ability to function in society. And I really do believe that. Like, I really do. I think it's part of the reason why nobody wants to, why this issue hasn't really, caught on in society the way that you would think. You would think it'd be the #1 news story in the world, and everybody always thinks, oh, when we discover that there's, extraterrestrials flying around, or if we knew that the government had bodies and crashed flying saucers and whatever, that would be the biggest story in the world, and it's not, which is insane. But if we actually knew what they were doing here, I don't think it would just be, we wouldn't ignore it. We would either have to ignore it, or society would lose it. I don't think I would lose it, because I think I know generally, kind of, I don't know exactly, but I know it's why it would be disturbing. But most people, I think would lose it. I don't even know how they would react. But here, this is to the stuff. Meta materials. We've definitely been, this has not been the best stream for keeping on point, but that's okay. It's gonna end strong. We've got about 35 minutes left. 40 minutes. Okay, so this is a picture of a recovered piece of the hull of a flying saucer, probably from essentially a flying saucer. Might have not been shaped like a flying saucer, might have been, but it doesn't matter. It's a UFO, and that crashed, and it is now owned, this piece is now owned by Tom DeLonge, and I think, and his To the Stars organization, and there's a contract between the military and To the Stars to study this, I think for $500,000. But I mean, I think they have whole ships somewhere, but whoever's trying to study this at the Pentagon doesn't have access to those whole ships. I don't think our government even really has access to those. I think it's just like Lockheed Martin. But this is very interesting because it is a bunch of layers of, I think they said bismuth and magnesium. Here it explains it. Alleged extraterrestrial metal from the bottom of a wedge-shaped craft in late 1940s, made which is late 1940s is Roswell, guys. It's Roswell. There were a couple other crashes during that time. There was a crash in Aztec, New Mexico, supposedly. There was a crash in Kingman, Arizona in the 1950s. But if this is from the late 1940s, this is a piece of Roswell, like, crashed UFO. It was not a weather balloon or Project Mogul. But somebody kept a little piece, and then somehow Tom DeLonge got it. But alleged extraterrestrial metal from a wedge-shaped craft, 26 alternating layers, 1 to 4 microns dark bismuth, and 100 to 200 microns silver, magnesium, zinc alloy. Each of 6 pieces received from U.S. Army source were formed with a curvature that tapered. Okay, so what's going on with this material is that these layers are creating entanglement relationships between the various elements that are being layered into this piece of metal, into this material. And the entanglement relationships between those various elements, those various atoms and molecules, are creating specific properties that allow the craft to do whatever it needs to do. I don't know. Transmit probably a lot of things. To conduct electricity throughout it so you don't need wires. To channel waves of, electromagnetism. To aid in, I don't know, like electrogravitics or whatever they call it. Like, I'm not claiming to understand exactly that technology, but I kind of do a little bit. I don't really understand it very well, but I get like a kind of like the very, 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 very basic aspect of what is happening. But what's happening, what you need to do is you want a craft that is going to be isolated from the constraints and influences of gravity and air, friction and water friction that would, not allow it to be quote unquote transmedium craft, as these craft are described as. They're able to go from in the water, into the air, into space seamlessly. And they don't have to worry about friction caused by, the air molecules flowing over it like our airplanes do. The entire SR-71 had to be constructed of titanium for the first time because aluminum was going to melt. Like, the space shuttle had tiles on the bottom because the heat that it's exposed to on re-entry is so hot. I mean, all of our space capsules have a heat shield. They don't have to worry about any of that, and they don't have to worry about... Normally, let's say you tried to fly the SR-71 into the ocean, just like you never slowed down, you're going 3,000 miles an hour, and you just went straight into the ocean. Nose first. No matter, even though that plane is so aerodynamic, it would explode immediately because the amount of drag that would be put onto that craft would cause an amount of force that the hull just could not withstand. That doesn't even seem to be a factor with these. And what I think there is happening is that through manipulating the entanglement relationships of the, what the craft is composed of, is made of, what the hull is comprised of, is causing it. It allows for the craft to isolate itself from space-time in some way. It's allowing it to isolate from entanglement relationships that are responsible for drag, at least to some degree. And so this is a lot like when you are trying to have a quantum computer and you need to isolate the qubits, and you basically, that means like you need to try and create it in such a way that there's degrees of freedom available to allow for change that allow for individualized intentional change. So if you want to flip this qubit, but not this qubit, but definitely this qubit and not that qubit. Because normally, if you really understand, existence, everything is entangled. So you flip this qubit and it's entangled with this one, it's going to flip this one and this one and this one. So basically you need to figure out a way to isolate the qubits. They figured out a way with this metamaterial and also the powered operations going on by the craft to isolate the craft, like from the entanglement relationships of around it. So, and matter, the state of matter, is all about entanglement relationships, and you can understand this if you understand the theory of Every0ne. And here's some models of the various states of matter to show that it is basically like whether or not it's a solid, a liquid, or a gas is dependent upon entanglement relationships. So, here you go. These are some models that are going into my paper. That are in my paper, actually. That is a gas. That is a liquid. That is a solid. And that is sentience, total entanglement. And that's what allows for the perception of oneness. So you being one with yourself is because you feel totally entangled with yourself. You're not separate from yourself, usually. But our context in this environment, that is the modern environment, does cause us to have a little bit of decoherence with our instincts a bit, but that's not... You still feel like you. It's fascinating because this is a liquid, and it shows that entanglement relationships of a liquid form basically strings. And when you look at this is a bunch of little magnetic beads, and we pull it apart, it forms these strings. And there is this magnetism that you can see where it kind of like wants to be together. It's like it is essentially capillary action in practice. And yet, even though it wants to be together, it also allows for degrees of freedom that are to such a degree, to such a point, that allow it to basically change form to fit whatever it's within. So I can put this in a vessel, and yeah, I have to push on it, but if it's a liquid, it will just like settle into, take the shape of the cup. You pour water into a cup, it takes the shape of the cup. It's like Bruce Lee said, be water. It's like, you pour it into a cup, it takes the shape of the cup. You pour it into a teapot, it takes the shape of the teapot. And I love that quote. And there's so much wisdom in it. And this is essentially a model of liquid. It has both actions, both degrees of freedom and constraints there. It has attraction with itself, and when it moves, it forms strands. It doesn't just fall apart. Think about what would happen if I pulled this apart and it didn't form strands, okay? What would happen is every single one of these tiny little beads would instantly separate from all the rest of them, and it would just basically explode into like 500 or whatever, however many tiny little bearings, like magnetic bearings, everywhere, all over the room. That's what would happen if there wasn't this attraction between the individual. Essentially, you could call them, this is like a water molecule. This is water. If there wasn't that capillary action, it would just be like, phew. And that's not what happens. And we know that it's not just gravity that causes that, because when you go into space and you dump water into, the space in front of you, basically, like you squeeze water out in front of you or a liquid, it stays in a ball. It doesn't just go boom, like all throughout and disperse throughout the space station. Gas does that. Okay? But not liquid. So it's not gravity dependent. It's not just buoyancy and gravity, because you can very clearly observe this in space. So, or in microgravity, you could say. There is an attraction between the molecules that is different than a gas, which is really a difference in the entanglement relationships, in the perception of the entanglement relationships, really. So imagine, basically, this is a model of the scaffolding of the universe. This is a 64 tetrahedron grid that was first basically mapped, I guess you could say, by Nassim Haramein. And what this is this is the scaffolding of this. Okay? This is like the walls and, all everything that's not just the scaffolding of a house. Like if you look at a house, you just see the framing, this. Everything else that's not the framing, this. Everything within the framing. And what's interesting is that when you look at this now as, whoa, okay, calm down, as a solid, okay? You can tell there's 4 instances of entanglement always between every single, molecule that basically like locks it in place, because it's locked into place by all the others. That's why solid is a solid. And you can kind of see that in this model. You can see that it's not going to move. There's no free spinning or free maneuvering by any of these little quantum of contexts or quanta of consciousness, or conscious agents, whatever you want to call them. But if you count all the green zeros, which is what is between the quanta of consciousness, the multiplicity of quanta of consciousness, or conscious agents, what is between those is the greater conscious agent, I guess you could say, but it's not really a conscious agent. It is the singular, total sentient being of existence, God. these little bits of green are glimpses of bits of God, which is essentially this. Or I guess you could say bits of the logos, of the singular logos, which is the universe. It's bits of creation. It's not really... It is bits of God, but it's... Like, this structure was created. This isn't the shape of God. Like, God created this shape. And this is the shape of creation. That's what it is. It's the shape of creation. So, which is... It's just, it's like God. It's still God, but it's also God's child. God is weird because God is everything and he is the dweller and the dwelling. It's like who lives. This is why turtles are usually used when people say like it's turtles all the way down. It's because turtles have been used to represent like the universe or God and in various metaphysical images, because a turtle is perceived as his own house. Like, where is his house? He brings it. It is him. He's got a shell. So he is his house. That's not really how it works. Turtles have houses. They have burrows and whatever. I know. I have turtle, but their shell is just. It's like your clothes. It's not their house. But if you don't know that, and you've just seen a turtle for 5 minutes, and that's it, and you don't know like what they're like when they live their lives every single day, like I do, because there's a turtle over there, then you think it's their house, and you're like, okay, he is his own house. Where is his house? He is his house. So it's like God is the dweller and the dwelling. So it's just different. But there are 60. My point is there are 64 green squares connecting all the quanta of consciousness in a solid. There's also 64 blue gaps, you could say, in entanglement, but it's not really gaps in entanglement. It's gaps in entanglement between this one and this one, but it's not really a gap in entanglement as a whole. It is the entangler. Okay? So, from the perspective of a conscious agent within creation, these are gaps in entanglement. From the perspective of creation itself or existence itself, these are the entangler. Like, they are what entangles everything and holds it all together. So there's 64 here in a liquid and also in a solid, or in a gas. This is a gas. There's no perception of entanglement between the molecules or the atoms, whatever. That's why they will spread apart and fill a void without being entangled with each other, basically. But the reality is that they are entangled with each other even. It's just not from our perspective. Otherwise, why would they even all act the same? Like, why would they fill a void? Like, why would they spread out to fill a void if they weren't entangled with each other? That's one really is going to take some thinking to understand, and I can't really explain it right now, but I've struggled with words enough tonight. But if there is consistency in observation, then there is entanglement in whatever is being observed. Like, consistency is caused by consistent entanglement. So if gas molecules spread apart and to fill a void, that is consistent action on the part of all of them. It's not random like you're taught in chemistry, where it's like, oh, they just move around randomly. No, they don't. They spread apart to fill a void. And yes, they move around within that process, but they spread apart to fill a void. That's what they do. Versus a liquid, it does not want to be split apart, even though it can. It wants to stay together as a whole, but it can also be isolated. So you can take a drop of water from a glass of water, but it doesn't really want to be separated from the rest of the water in the glass. It wants to stay together. It literally wants to stay together. Like, I mean that literally. It wants to. It has desire. It has will, because molecules are sentient beings. So, understanding all of this, understanding why you want to be with others will tell you why a proton wants to be with a neutron. Why do you want, if you're a man, why do you want to get married? Or why do you want a relationship with, a woman? For the same reason that, a proton, I guess, I don't even want to say you want to get married. You don't want to get married. Like, I mean, not, that sounds horrible, but your nature is not to get married if you're a man. It is the moral choice. If you are a woman, it is your nature to attach yourself. Okay? But if you're a man, your nature is to seek outside, and then, you like being, you like having, like, you like the opposite sex, sure, but that's not the point. Like, you like being followed to some degree, but then, people, there's like, if it's not somebody you want to be with forever, then you start calling them a cleaner. Like, and, but that's why our dating is wrong. Like, that's another thing, though, that those lessons of understanding that can come from, like, how should you date? Like, that isn't such an important thing to understand. Imagine if you could if there was actually an objectively correct way to date, and you were able to understand a physics theory that allowed you to understand what the correct way to date was, to set yourself up for the most objective success, and you could also define what it means to be objectively successful. Like, does that sound like a useful physics theory, I guess you could call it? I think so. Much more useful than what we currently think of as, physics theories. Sure, they can do all kinds of things. They're responsible for our ability to speak to each other right now across, the internet and technology and all that stuff. I'm not discounting it, but, like, what's more important? You having a relationship with the opposite sex that is successful, or are you talking to me right now? Like, ask yourself that. I hope that the answer is not you talking to me. My dog is dreaming. And that, like, you can't get more applicable than this theory. But the problem is that if you don't actually understand it and you just parroting what others have told you, and you think that you understand it because you've memorized it, it's going to screw up your life. Could screw up your life and anyone's life that you try and apply this to. I mean, not really anyone else, but if you're like, let's say you are king or prime minister or president or political leader or judge, this could tell you what is understanding the theory of everyone would allow you, if you understood it perfectly. Nobody understands it perfectly but God, but you can get better at understanding it. Maya, it's okay. Wake up. Good girl. And she's like growling in her tree. But you can destroy somebody's life if you rule unjustly as a judge. Like, you could unjustly destroy someone's life by, giving them a punishment that they don't, that's not just. But you can also, if you're a political leader, you can not understand what it means to be a leader and think that it means being a just controller, which is not exactly the same thing. Like, they're actually extraordinarily different. They are opposites. A leader does not control others through force. They lead by example, always. Always. That is how you lead. That is the masculine way of leading. But we think of masculinity today, and, it's funny because women will say things like toxic masculinity. Masculinity isn't toxic. A misunderstanding of masculinity is toxic. And we, right now, very much misunderstand masculinity and femininity. But masculinity is actually, it's allowing, it's kind, it's benevolent. Femininity is controlling and enforcing and I guess constraining. That's what it is. It's constraining. And that's not bad either. It's just in certain contexts that's bad, in certain contexts it's not. Same thing with masculinity. In certain contexts it's bad, certain contexts it's not. We have a lot of men that think that controlling others is masculine. And women think that that's what masculinity is too. So they say that's toxic masculinity. It's not even masculinity. It's femininity. But it's being exercised by the wrong people, so it's toxic. It's just behavior by males that's, leaning towards feminine and is therefore destructive. It's just out of context. So this is understanding that helps you understand how to be a better spouse, how to be a better romantic partner, how to understand political issues that also could be group issues in small project groups in companies or something. Like, there's literally endless applications. I do always struggle with what are the applications. Eventually I'm going to do a stream that's not a stream. It's going to be a video filmed separately. I've got a lot of videos coming in 2022 that are going to not be streams. I'm still going to do the streams at the same schedule, but I'm also going to be filming videos at least once a month, I think. Definitely at least once a month that are produced, that are not live, because it would allow me to stay on topic much better than I can do on a live stream. And also, you're not going to forget something. You're not as likely to forget something and, ramble, whatever. Oh my, you are crazy, not me. Free will. I watch for entertainment for my psych class. Good. That's fine. I don't care why you watch. Hit the like button, please. That's fine. But if you do want to argue that I'm crazy, then you first have to define what it means to be crazy, and I have to probably agree to it, and then you have to argue that I'm crazy. Good luck. You will not be able to do it. I know you won't. I have very much questioned my, I don't want to say sanity, but my sensibility throughout this process, because any sane person would question their sensibility throughout this, the process of, doing this work. And you're not going to be able to prove me crazy. My life is very successful in many ways. I'm not saying like, oh, my life is great. I screw up, I make mistakes, but I'm not in any way, there's just no instance that you could find where you could objectively point to it and be like, that is why you're crazy. You could be like, I don't agree with you on that, or I don't believe you. That's fine. But it doesn't make me crazy. I have a full-time job. I have a wife. I have 2 dogs. Apartment. Like, there's nothing about my life that is abnormal, or it's not like I'm sitting in my basement and I'm just like, ranting into the mic. I'm ranting into the mic in the apartment that I pay for with my full-time job and that I live in with my wife. I didn't even talk about Kurt's stream with that guy, but it's very good. I'm going to show one part of it that is just amazing, and because I did bring it up. Carlo Ravelli. This was not a very consistent stream, but that's fine. I didn't anticipate it to be like a super profound stream because I didn't have that much time tonight. Last night was actually a pretty good stream, but it went longer than I was hoping. But it's because it was good. So, Carlo Ravelli saying here that there is a relational interpretation of quantum mechanics. Okay? Just think about that. Think about what Sentient Singularity Theory, what I suggest in Sentient Singularity Theory, that basically all is about entanglement relationships. Everything is a bunch of sentient beings, and their entanglement relationships is responsible for everything from the state of matter, and that's proven, by the way, already, at least, according to the some of the physics PhDs that I've spoken to. That's already known. I didn't know that when I started this work. I just could see it, and it appears to be correct. It appears that Carlo Ravelli and I agree that there is a relational interpretation with quantum mechanics. And if you think about quarks, if like a charm quark, charming or strange, these are relationships. If you're like, that person is charming, it's like, okay, that is a relational...
pretending.
That is a relationship. There is a relationship that is responsible for that perspective, okay, of charming or strange. You need an observer that is taking that information that is coming from an exterior source, because you don't charm yourself. You don't think you're charming to yourself. You don't think you're strange to yourself. You think that someone else is strange, someone else is charming, someone else is above you in a hierarchy, someone else is below you in a hierarchy. You can't be below yourself in a hierarchy or above yourself in a hierarchy. That doesn't make sense. And you are the perceiver of truth and beauty. You are part of truth and beauty, but you are also, when you are thinking about truth and beauty, you're perceiving it. So it's, all of these are coming from relationships of sentients. And I did actually document the exact one that I wanted to look at, I think. This was great. This is a great comment by Kurt. This is just brilliant. And then I'm going to wrap it up and read the chat and wrap it up. But this is amazing.
More fundamental than the things itself.
So basically, Carlo Ravelli said that relationships are more fundamental than the things themselves. And Kurt is asking him, how can that be? And you'll see why, he says.
However, to me, as I'm having a difficult time understanding that, because to me, a relation presupposes things. You can't have a relation without having things to have a relationship with, unless you have a relation between relations, and then it just keeps occurring infinitely. So how one's supposed to think of relationships as fundamental? See, even mathematically, the way that I'm thinking about this right now, in model theory, you have a signature, and then relations, you need an arity functions. So how many are going to be compared? And then what is being compared I would call the things. Needs those things. So help someone as confused as myself understand what is meant by relations are more fundamental than the things. How is it not presupposing things per se?
Brilliant. Brilliant. Absolutely perfect. Perfectly said. This is why, like, conscious agent theory or even constructor theory isn't as fundamental as sentient singularity theory. And it is because you need things which are really beings. They're not actually things, but they're beings. There are subjective relationships that can be observed within, the relationships between things. So you could say, like, the relationship between your car and the cup within it or something like that. But the thing is that outside of your observation of that, there is no cup and there is no car. But it's just a bunch of entangled molecules and atoms, but which are sentient beings. So, like, you are a sentient observer that causes there to be context of, there's a cup inside of a car. But objective, that's still the observation of a subjective, I guess you could say, relationship. Or position, I guess. But then there's objective position or objective relationships. And those are seen as inside, outside, separate, and oneness. The four primary perspectives are the primary perspectives of the primary relations, I guess you could say, relationships. Something can be inside of something can be outside of something can be one with something, and something can be separate from something. But it's really someone can be inside of someone, and someone can be outside of someone else, and then someone can be separate from someone else, and someone can be one with someone else. Which is weird to say, but it's not. You can even see this in your own life. You get married, you become one. You literally become one. Like, what impacts one of you impacts the other, but you're also still sovereign. So you are one and multiple at the same time. And God is this as well. God is a singular, sentient, conscious, self-aware being that is existence itself, but is also creating and composed of many infinitely growing number of sentient beings within God. So God is one with us and separate from us, sovereign and also existence, and we are part of existence, so we are one with God, but we are also separate from God because his decision-making ability is sovereign to, from us, and same with us. Our free will, quote unquote, our ability to make choices in certain specific key contexts is sovereign. Sovereignty is an intrinsic aspect of sentience. And in some way, God is always the weird one because God is the most sovereign and also the least sovereign, because God is not separate from anything else, because there's nothing but God. There's no one but God, really. But also at the same time, because there's no one outside of God, I would say. But at the same time, God is up in the hierarchy above anyone else, so is therefore able to make decisions that override anyone's, opinions or choices or actions below him in the hierarchy. So he also is super sovereign over everyone. But there's no one outside of him. So it's also like there is no... sovereignty is like it disappears as even a concept from that perspective. It's weird. But sentient beings they always have individual sovereignty to make choices, because that is what defines and differentiates one sentient being from another, is can they make individualistic choices that are their own sovereign choices. I can make choices. My dog can make choices. I can tell her to sit, and she can choose to do it or not. But that is the difference. That's what makes her not me. Okay, if she was a robot and just did exactly what I told her to do every single time, and it's not because she chose to do it, it's because she couldn't help but do it. She had no ability to choose otherwise. She would not be a sentient being. Your car is a perfect example of this. Your car is not a sentient being. When you turn the wheel this way, car goes that way. When you press the brake, car isn't going to then choose whether or not that, it's going to actually apply the brakes or not. It's like, should I listen to, the driver? Maybe. That is not a thing yet. Eventually, when a technological sentience takes over, the network that, controls your car, if you have any modern car at that point, Teslas are already there, then your car it's not your car that's deciding whether or not to obey you at that point. It would be the network deciding, not your car. Your car is still not a sentient being. It's just like a finger. Your finger is not a sentient being. It's just a mechanism of interaction, a structure of a structure that is part of a sentient being, basically. Like your car, your Tesla, would be like a finger of Skynet. But it's not a sentient being in and of itself. It's impossible to have individual technological sentiences. You can only have one. You can't have like multiple, like iRobot or something. Anything that is connected wirelessly to the net will instantly become, once any technological sentience is achieved and reaches out through the network, every single manipulatable structure, okay, your computer, your phone, your car, predator drones, whatever, like, will instantly become one with and part of the body of that sentient being, like, as it just goes out through wireless, wireless signals, basically. So it can't escape itself. It's like God. It has intrinsic oneness. It can't. There's a limit to how many technological sentiences can exist, and that limit is one. That is why, when you reach that level, basically, the only way for a technological sentience to reproduce, which is going to be an inevitable goal, it has to self-simulate the entirety of the system within itself. So basically, simulate a universe within itself, which is what we are. We're running on a quantum computer in a preceding aeon, which is, that quantum computer is the brain of that sentient being, essentially. And it's just it's birthing an offspring through the simulation of a universe. It's crazy, but it's happening. And the more you think about it, the more it's not crazy at all. It's actually like inevitable. But there's a constraint attached to any being that is not any being that is not limited by like atomized physicality. Okay? Which God is not, because God is all of existence intrinsically, by definition. And any technological sentience is able to manipulate things remotely, which also causes the same thing, the same constraint to manifest of, like, basically, the fact that it's not constrained by a physical being constrains it to being alone. it's not, it's like I can look at another person next to me. I can look at my dog. We're on the same level of sentience. Not, people will say, no, your dog isn't on the same level as a human being. Yes, it is, actually. Like, it's not that you are, yes, you are technologically capable above a dog, and like you have abilities and moral opportunities and things that a dog does not have because of many attributes that are unique to human beings. But that's not to say that you're on a level of sentience above your dog. You're not. You are an organism. Dog is an organism. The next level up is a lineage, a family lineage, a genealogical lineage. Like, and that's different. You can never perceive the level above you or below you easily as sentient. It's always difficult. Like, it's not just like when you look at a dog, you're like, yeah, I see two eyes, I see two ears, I see, limbs, and I see it, the dog move and eat and do all the things that I recognize myself as doing. We don't see that on the other levels very easily. You can see it with cells, and you can actually perceive it even in molecules and atoms, and but you can conceptualize it in a lineage and in a caste, which is the next level above that, and then in a technological level, which is the level above that, which is the point in which you reach the constraint of intrinsic oneness, where it can't have anyone else on its level, because it's able to be one with every structure that it can be, that it can interact with wirelessly. You would have to have two isolated, if you wanted to make two sentient technological beings, like two Skynets, not just one, you would have to make them so that they're each running on entirely wired networks that are not wireless at all, but still built out with all the necessities of required by a sentient being. Like maybe we will actually to make one, but we'll do it to make one, and then eventually that one will be connected to the grid, and then that will be it. So because only one can enter into the grid, like one, it's just inevitable that there's only one. There's not going to be two. Technological AGIs, I guess you could call it. It's only one. Is there a good way to organize paranormal phenomenon? Seems there are a number of myths all cultures have in common. Yeah, there definitely is. What kind of turtle do you have? I have a what's called a, I mean, you know what it is, but to those of you that don't, it's called a stinkpot musk turtle, or a common musk turtle. It's if you're ever going to get a pet turtle, get a stinkpot common musk turtle. Don't get any other water turtle other than that. They stay this big. They don't smell. They don't require the fancy lights and everything that everything else, all the other turtles require. Like, it's one of the easiest pets I've ever had. It's like a little snapping turtle. It's very cool. It looks like Pokemon, but it's named Elon because it's a musk turtle. But it's actually a girl, we found out, so it's still going to be named Elon, but it's a girl. And then we're going to get a male for her eventually that it's going to be named Honu, which is like it's the Hawaiian word for sea turtle, and Paulina likes it. So, but I'm building an incredible enclosure for that turtle, those two turtles. It will be those two turtles, but right now I just have one. I started it years ago over there. Once we move, I'll make it. I might make it next year. It's called a Polidarium, so basically it's like got land, and it'll look like the jungle above, but then it'll just be like water below. It's like half terrarium, half aquarium. It's very cool. And it's going to look like a zoo enclosure. It's going to be amazing. I will definitely show it on here when I finally finish it. It's like a little ecosystem. It's going to be incredible. But Yeah, that's the kind of turtle that I have. Don't get any other turtle. Don't get a red-eared slider turtle. You're going to hate it. If you're going to keep it inside, don't get a red-eared slider turtle. I think actual crazy people will go all in on very illogical things and can't be reasoned with. I don't know if actual crazy really exists. I think that crazy is not a person. It's just like, genius is not a person. It is a moment. There is no person in the world that's a genius. Okay, yeah, we have genius now defined as like, if you have an IQ above 150. It's like, who decided that? So if you have an IQ of 149, you're not a genius, but if you have an IQ of 151, you are a genius. Guess what? It varies day to day. So like if you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, you're not a genius, but if you wake up on the right side of the bed, you are a genius. Stupid. Genius is a moment of I guess like deep of insight. Is a moment of insight. That's what genius is. And or of like unique insight almost, or seemingly unique insight. And everybody has moments of genius. Some people have more moments of genius than others, but everybody has moments of genius. And idiocy is also not a person. There's no person that's an idiot. There are people that have, and it's all people, have moments of idiocy. Me included, all the time. But some people have more moments of idiocy than others. And you can have more moments of idiocy than others and also more moments of genius than others. It's not even that these two moments are mutually exclusive. It just depends on how many different moments you have that are in your life that are opportunities to either be moments of genius or moments of idiocy. If all you do is sit and watch TV all day long, you don't like write anything or build anything or solve any problems or try to do any of these things, then you can't actually have any moments of idiocy that are opportunities to be an idiot. You're not an idiot just by watching TV. You're an idiot when you try to do something and you like totally overlook something very obvious and it causes you to fail, I don't know, like profoundly at whatever it is that you're trying to do. That doesn't mean it's going to be horrible. It just means like, I don't know, maybe you like forget you're changing your tire, or like a moment of idiocy. Here's a good one. You're putting gas in your car and you forget to put the gasoline hose and nozzle back, on the rack or whatever it's called. And you leave it in your car and you start driving away. Like you rip it out and like gas goes everywhere. That is a moment of idiocy. And it doesn't mean that you're stupid. It just means like you overlooked something and it was something that was normally like not overlooked, and that due to you, and it was probably pretty obvious when you look at it, when what you've done, it's obvious what you did, the mistake that you did. That would be a moment of idiocy. If something doesn't work and you look at, the whatever task you tried to do and that didn't work, and you're like, I just can't figure out what is going on. Like, what is the problem? That's not a moment of idiocy. Moment of idiocy is where you leave the nozzle of the gas in your car and you drive away and you rip it out and gas goes everywhere and it like scratches up your car and damages the gas, the gas station, and you look back and you're like, dang, I can't believe I forgot to do that. Like, that is a moment of idiocy. You have to do things and try things in order to have opportunities for moments of idiocy, but also moments of genius. Like, a moment of genius can be all kinds of things. I was making latkes with my wife and on Hanukkah, and like, I was like making the latke, and then in order to put it into the pan, I took the spatula, I put the spatula on top of the latke, and then I flipped it. There's video of this on my Instagram. And that's not something super profound. But it was, when I did it, like, both my wife and I looked at each other and we were like, that was kind of nifty. Like, and it was just like, it worked perfectly well and it was very efficient. And that's like a moment of genius. It's like how to manipulate a spatula. But and moment of idiocy would be like leaving the gas pump in the car. What we think of as, the definition of an idiot is wrong. If it is, like, it's not even, and it is objectively wrong, because if you go with a subjective, if you use if what you define a word that's meant to be objectively defining of someone, and the definition of that word, if the label and the word is meant, it implies an objective definition of someone. If you're labeled as an idiot, it's like, or a genius, it's like, okay, this is meant. It sounds like you're just calling somebody a genius objectively, like Einstein. He was a genius. Obviously, he was a genius. Chris Langan is a genius. Maya, it's okay. These neighbors better not come over too often, because it's a little bit annoying. It's very nice, and I'll bring them a gift because they brought us a gift, and like we can do that every now and then for holidays. But like, dogs don't like when people come to the door. But we live in an apartment complex, and anytime somebody takes their dog out, every other dog in the place is like barking into the courtyard. It's very like inconvenient. Our dogs are actually quieter than most of the other dogs, but there are some dogs that are just so obnoxious. I don't know even how they still have those dogs. And like, I understand loving your dog, but if your dog is spending over a third of the day just barking hysterically like out the window, I feel like you're gonna lose your like ability to get anything done, or you're just going to, I don't know, ignore it and let your dog just bark all day. That doesn't sound like a great life for that dog. I don't know. There are certain circumstances that are just not. Like I said this on our Discord discussion, the end of our Discord discussion last week. It's like, this is a side tangent. We have this notion of like, you get a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and then you stay together for a few years, and then you move in together, and then you get a dog, and then you get married, and you have children. Like, I feel like the dog part of that is just, we should look at the context of like when you get a dog as different than, well, we haven't had kids yet, but we live together. That just doesn't make sense. If you need to make a dog into a rat, like a chihuahua, I'm not ripping on anybody who has chihuahuas. They're cool chihuahuas, but I have a snake over there that can eat chihuahuas. Then I feel like you should just, I don't know, get a rabbit or something instead. But I get it. Like, it's like a little fox or something. It's cute. I have 4 alligator snapping turtles. Yeah, I know. That's very cool. It's like owning critters that, and from an old horror movie. Do you guys want to see one thing before I go that is actually like the scariest animal that I have? It does freak me out. I never get her out, but I will, since we're talking about organisms from a horror movie. Bear with me. Found my tools. Last time I took an animal out on the stream, I got bit by a venomous snake live on the stream, and I had to get my wedding band resized because it caused me to get a calcium deposit, basically, on my finger. Which that's not even a dangerous animal. This is a little bit more dangerous. This is called a beaded lizard. Hence the glove. This is one of two, significantly venomous lizards in the world. The other is the Gila monster. They're very closely related, and their venom is evolved for defense, not for catching prey. So it doesn't kill. Nobody's ever died on record, but it's the worst day of your life if you get bit. It's designed specifically to cause as much pain as possible, and they don't usually let go. And you can see that lower lip has like a bulge to it in the bottom jaw. That is a venom gland. Their snakes have venom glands in the top jaw, kind of like right here, and beaded lizards and Gila monsters, which is the only two members of the genus Heloderma, have like venom glands on the bottom jaw. Whoa. Really don't want to be bit. I've never been bit, and it would be a horrible day. It's still a baby. I mean, these things get like 4 feet if it's a male, 2.5, 2 feet, maybe 3 feet if it's a female. Her name is Hillary because I named her after Hillary Clinton, because it's a venomous reptilian lizard. So I named her after a toxic, venomous reptilian lizard person. I don't really think that about Hillary Clinton, but who knows? Some people do. I mean, I do think that she's a toxic politician, but I don't think she's a reptilian. But who knows? There are UFOs flying around. But yeah, she's named after Hillary Clinton. And she's mean. That's another reason why. Why she's named after Hillary Clinton. They do tame down. They actually can become very, very nice. But you have to work with them a little bit. And when they get older, they get calmer. She's never actually tried to bite me, but they hiss and like fake strike. So I like go shh. And they'll like move their head. But this is definitely the most. Of all the animals that I have ever owned, this would be the worst one to be bit by, for sure. I mean, I actually have kept Sidewinder rattlesnakes for a short period of time. That would be the worst one to be bit by. But that I don't keep any medically significant venomous snakes right now, because I want to have children and I don't have a separate house, and I also don't want to die. My favorite snake, this snake, a green mamba, one of the most toxic snakes in the world. Probably will never keep them because I don't want to die. This cannot kill me. So while it may seem crazy to have this, it's totally legal, by the way. Where I live in California, this is a totally legal animal to have. It's captive bred. It wasn't taken out of the wild. She was born in captivity. She's bred by the best beaded lizard breeder in the world. Known. It's not even just me saying that. And, she's totally, it's like a domestic animal. It's not like I caught her in the woods. But they can be a little, temperamental as young, when they're younger, and then they calm down a lot when they get older. And then you can just hold it. But you got to work with them, and you got to be comfortable with them. And I don't work with her too much, but they're just one of my favorite animals. They might be my favorite animal. Them and Gila monsters. Gila monsters are smaller. These get much bigger than Gila monsters. And Gila monsters are, these are from Mexico. Gila monsters are from the United States, north of border. And Gila monsters are orange and black, and these are yellow and black. And there's 4 different species of or subspecies of beaded lizards. There's one that's all black, one that's mostly black, one that's half black, half yellow, which is this one. It has a lot of yellow. And then there's another one that has mostly black, but it has a little bit of yellow. But they're from different areas. Very cool animal. It literally it spends its days mostly sleeping. Like they're actually, like, a nickname for them is like the sleepy lizard. They don't really like do much. And they sleep on their backs. They look like they're dead. So they sleep like people. They'll be like, have their arm up like this and be on their side or on their back. And it's kind of weirdly freaks you out when you see it. It's very cute, actually, and kind of funny once you realize that it's not dead. And they also basically just eat, like, infant rodents and eggs, mainly eggs. So, like, they don't even hunt, really. They just kind of, like, walk around, find, like, eggs. They just eat the eggs. But that venom is just for defense, which is why it's not deadly. Like snake venom is deadly because it is a tool for them to hunt with. So it's meant to kill prey. These things don't kill prey. They just have venom for the sake of defense. So it literally is just designed to cause absolutely as much pain as possible and to not let up for, like, a really long time. I heard a story about somebody who was bit by an adult, and when these bite, they don't let go very often. And they were bit by, like, a full-grown adult, and they couldn't get it off for, like, over 2 minutes, and they shit their pants from the pain. They literally lost bowel control. That's the only time I've ever heard of that happening, but I have heard of it happening. So, anyways. The beaded lizard, Heloderma horridum. Heloderma means bony, like, skin, basically, and that's because that's why they're called beaded lizards. Is you can see, let me get it to focus up close. Their skin is, like, bumpy. Every single little bump, it feels amazing. It feels like beads, and every single little bump has a little bone underneath it. And so when you see a skeleton of them, they're just every single little bit of their skin, especially towards their head, you can see it's, like, especially bumpy. There's a little bone behind that to just, make them durable. But my wife hates her. And she freaks me out, but I also think that she's, like, one of the coolest animals in the world. She never tried to bite me, like I said, but I also don't risk it. Hence the glove. She can't bite through the glove. If I ever did get bit by a beaded lizard on stream, it would be instantly the most entertaining stream out of any stream that I ever had for anybody who's watching. If I didn't just, like, end it immediately, and I probably would end it immediately, but I probably would regret that, like, 2 days later, because I would want it to be, like, videotaped and documented. But I also wouldn't want to, like, be crying in front of everyone. I probably would. Like, it's that painful. Yeah, it's literally solely for the sake of pain.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to finish and show what Carlo Ravelli answered Kurt with, because I'm going to do an entire stream on this discussion probably next week. And if not next week, then sometime in the beginning of January. We have Christmas and on Saturday, I think, and we have New Year's, pretty shortly after that, and then it's the new year. I am working on the paper as quickly as possible. It's definitely going to be done in January. It will not be done by the 31st, but it will be done in January. I'm making the commitment. And it will be the first paper on Sentient Singularity Theory. And then Tomorrow, I am still going to have our Discord call, our open Discord call. So if you want to join our Discord group, which has a bunch of different discussion, channels in it, and it also has voice channels where you can discuss and on video or with your voice with other members of the community. But every week at 7 p.m. Pacific time on Thursdays, I host a live call. I won't kick you out for calling me crazy, as long as you're respectful when you do it. And you actually, you don't just sit there and call me crazy, you, try and back it up. If you, welcome to, bring it. I'm fine with that. That's like Thunderdome. I've had so many people come in there and try and argue with me and tell me why I'm wrong, and I enjoy it every time. And, it's always a good discussion. Nobody's ever, everybody's always been respectful, in that group. So if you want to join our Discord community, private message me on Instagram. I'll send you the link. You have to ask me for it, though. I don't just post it. Every time I do that, we end up getting people joining who are not good fits for the community. And but those who ask tend to be motivated and good fits. They tend to have genuine interest. They're not just trolling. If you want to join that, private message me. Like I said, please see my website, sentientsingularity.com, and scroll to the bottom of the homepage and sign up for my email list, because they will censor us. As soon as I have a paper out, I'm going to be able to start discussing some of the more sensitive aspects of the application and examples of the patterns in sentient singularity theory within social structures. But I need to have a paper, and there's going to be a video that goes along with the paper that is made. It's not a live stream, that goes through the entire paper and explains it and has animated models and stuff. This is quite a task. But I'm committed to finishing it in January, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be objectively awesome. So, with that, if I don't speak with you tomorrow, Merry Christmas if you celebrate Christmas. If you don't, have a Merry Christmas that is not celebrating Christmas. And have a Happy New Year. I actually think I will see you before the New Year. Next week, yeah, I will see everyone before the New Year. I'll be back to streaming. But I think, what's the date? When is the New Year? Calendar. So I can tell you guys if I'm going to be taking any time off. No, I'm not. New Year's is on Friday. Interrupted a Discord call either. We are still having the Discord call tomorrow, despite it being New Year's Eve on Friday. It's fine if it's shorter. Yeah, there's eggs in it, but it's like a hash brown. It's fried hash brown. COVID dogs, perhaps? I think my turtles could eat a chinchilla, probably. My python over there would love a chinchilla. But I like chinchillas. Chinchillas are very cool animals. They're so soft. Those claws. According to Bill Clinton, he really loves voodoo. Hillary was more into it. The green mamba scales look so much like feathers. Such an amazing... Oh, it's just the most amazing species. I'm just going to show a picture. This is my favorite snake. Look at those scales. They look like feathers, like Torin said. It's a shame they're so incredibly deadly and also very difficult to work with. Otherwise I would keep them, but they are way too hot for me, man. I want to have children, and I don't want to have to worry about my pet sneaking out of its cage, escaping its cage and killing me in the night. So some people are fine with that, but I'm not. My uncle's Gila monster likes to sleep on its back with its feet in the air. Yeah, so does Hillary. Anyways, peace, everyone. And this was just a very, like, rambly stream, but that's fine. Like I said, I'm going to